Our Weekend Watch shines a spotlight on government activity. A new report says city colleges of Chicago have seen a decline in the number of students, but the number of degrees handed out are hitting record numbers. So the Better Government Association published an investigation with Crane Chicago Business. Here to crunch the numbers and tell us all about the investigation is the BGA's Special Projects Editor, David Kidwell. Nice to have you here.
Good to be here.
So this report is really interesting when it comes to Mayor Rahm Emanuel and the city colleges and the success he's been touting when it comes to graduation rates. And your report is essentially saying, not true. In fact, going as far as calling it data manipulation.
Right.
Explain that.
That's what it is. It's really been more of a numbers game. Rahm Emanuel has been on a national speaking tour, and one of his talking points is how he has increased graduation rates and increased degrees at city colleges of Chicago by a lot of education reforms that are turning out more students with more education and more degrees of economic value. But what really is happening is that they have looked for thousands of people who they watered down the curriculum and then looked for thousands of people who haven't attended in years and issued degrees retroactively.
You actually talked to some people who had maybe a class or years ago, and they're just getting notified now, recently, that, hey, you have a degree?
Well, in many cases, they're not being notified at all. We talked to one 73-year-old woman who hasn't attended a class in years, who got an AA degree or Associate in Arts degree back in 1994, and according to the records, she got a degree in 2015, and I called her. She didn't even know she had it. This degree means nothing to me. I've been retired for 10 years. I don't know what they're doing.
So how does that happen?
Well, it happens because they've got they've done a number of things that have reduced enrollment. There's a tuition hike on part-time students. They consolidated campuses to make it so it's harder for some students to drive all the way across to get the education they want. And they had to show success, and so they've done this. They've scoured their databases. They watered down the curriculum or reduced the standards on a lot of these degrees, and then they scoured their database looking for people who they could, number one, steer into these less vigorous curriculums, or former students who haven't been in years who they could confer these degrees upon.
I do want to mention that you reached out to Mayor Rahm Emanuel, City College's Chancellor Juan Salgado. He, Mr. Salgado, actually gave you a statement, and I'd like to make sure we read that too.
Sure.
Today's students are graduating and completing at more than double the rate prior to the launch of City College's reform efforts. We will continue to build upon national best practices to reduce barriers for students and increase the value of City College's credentials so that even more students reach their transfer and career goals. What's that say to you?
Well, it says to me that, yeah, we did it, but it was best practices. We did it for the students and not to make ourselves look good. That's essentially what the argument. I should point out that on Monday, we're posting a database, a searchable database. People can go onto our website, bettergov.org, look up their name and zip code and figure out whether they got a degree they didn't know about.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. You can read more BGA articles at bettergov.org. We're also posting a link on our website. That's abc7chicago.com.